It's time to roll out the red carpet. Limited Release 29 is a red IPA brewed with a complex grist of malts and a big blend of heavy-hitting American hop varieties, showcasing bold citrus and berry fruit characters on top of a luscious red toffee malt cushion. Sounds like a lovely red steel cushion I've recently seen at Season Aotearoa in Auckland. Check out this drop, like the exhibition, before it's gone. Today we have the absolute pleasure of turning the mic on one of our own. Gerard Dombrowski has his first solo show called Inflation on now at Season Aotearoa in Auckland, and we couldn't be prouder of him. In this episode, Gerard takes us through his artistic approach from wire brushing inside a cube to scattering objects on the floor. His insight into the connection between art and architecture is not to be missed. Get down to Season before the 12th of July to check out the exhibition and swag back on a wobbly chair. Time to dive in. I'm super keen to pick your brain about the exhibition and how you put it together and how it's gone and all that sort of jazz. Also think it's worth probably just giving a quick congratulations to Ben, architect Ben. We haven't done that on the pod yet. Well done, buddy.
Stop it. No one even knew I wasn't.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
We're now three architects.
You can now speak with validity on this show.
Know. I've leveled up. No, it feels good. It's like a chapter that took me 10 years to close, but got it done. Made it over the line.
You get to pay
Join
all that.
The team.
Get to pay all those exorbitant fees and ramp up your insurance.
I haven't done any of those things yet, but
early days.
Getting around to it. Yeah. No, it feels good. It actually does feel good.
Nice, bro. Nice. Yeah. Oh, congratulations.
And look at that sweet new beer architecture branding.
Yeah, I like it.
Look at that t-shirt.
Yep, got rolling the nice new kind of dolman. Thanks to the man himself. Pretty sick.
Get myself one of those.
Sam, you've done a company brand recently. How do you compare yours to mine?
I like yours. Ours is a little bit different. Here's our little business card.
Yours is fancy.
Little embossed number.
Mine's just a couple of guys, an illustration of two guys playing golf. That was me
and Johnny, dusty as the day after the Southern NZIA Awards, knocking the ball about
congrats.
Hawea golf course.
Yeah, a big congrats to
Thanks,
Architects for nailing that one as well.
Now
and another one recently with Robin Maria's, I believe.
Yeah, niche. Window and Glass Association of New Zealand.
Nice.
Now we're talking.
Residential Carpety in Wellington Glazed Home of the Year.
Boom.
Nice.
That's a national award.
It's
great.
A mouthful. It's cool though. Yeah, it's
hard
cool.
out.
Yeah, it's actually kind of cool to
more
be.
to come as well. I'm sure.
It's nice. I just reckon it's cool knowing that there's, I wouldn't have never known there was glass awards out there. Like, there's probably like plumbing awards and tiling awards and like all these sorts of random things out there, I imagine.
Do you reckon accountants have awards?
Yeah. Best spreadsheeter, fastest Exceller.
Yep. Oh, I love those Excel videos.
The Excel award.
Excelling at Excel. Excel world champs. Boom.
Yeah.
That's an accolade.
Look at us all doing
many
stuff.
puns. So many puns.
It's too good. But look at us all out there doing stuff.
Professional. Yeah, exhibition. That was a good time.
Yeah, mate.
That was full on.
It was good.
Had a couple.
I have to say I made it to the opening evening and I was the first person in the door, I believe, or one. I was the third after Gerard and Augie, and got to take like a photo of the raw exhibition, and damn, it looked good. I must say.
Gerard, tell us, give us the elevator pitch for those that don't know about it.
I don't know if you find yourself in Auckland before the 12th of this month. So by the time this episode comes out, it's probably closed. So you might be...
we might try to get this out before it closes.
You reckon it might come out on the 8th?
Yeah.
All right, so you got 4 days. Get yourself down to Grey Lynn to Season Aotearoa Gallery. It's my first solo, so I'm pretty thankful to old Jaden Francis for entrusting me with a solo. Momentous occasion in my art career.
What is it?
What was the theme?
Yeah, what is it?
It's kind of wobbly objects, wobbly vases. So it's kind of like a landscape. It's almost a garden. So what is it? It's probably 19 odd objects. There's 2 chairs,
6 chairs,
4 cushions, and then the rest are vases.
Nice.
Of varying heights and scales and widths and shapes.
Long tubular one. I love that.
Yeah.
That one's sick.
So we kind of arranged it as kind of like a culmination. So there's like an event, a climax at the end, and then it drops off again afterwards. So we kind of laid it out. So as you're walking in the door, it's like quite an impact, and then you get to sort of walk through the garden sort of thing. So yeah, it was way more of a spatial experience than, like, I knew it was going to be spatial, but it was like probably more of, it worked better than I was expecting it to.
Do you reckon that evolved during like the making of the pieces, or was that more on the setup?
Both are pretty key. I think the setup, we just angled the heights kind of in order roughly, so it kind of peaked on the chimney one. If you're listening to this and you don't know what we're talking about, we're just talking about a whole bunch of bubbly objects, really. Yeah, so it's just a room full of hydroformed objects. But the way I put it together was pretty instinctively. Like, we've talked about my design process quite a bit by now. So it's like, didn't draw many. I drew some stuff at the very end, just before I was making the chimney, as like how I wanted to arrange the space. Was like I needed that vertical element in there.
Is that sketch you put up on your Instagram?
No,
that's just a drawing of the actual
right.
exhibition. But I don't know if that's entirely true, Gerard, because you actually sent me a digital version of what your concept was, I guess. And it was definitely like kind of like scattered objects.
Shaping.
Like someone's like walked in the door with a tray of vases had fallen over, and like it's kind of like scattered over the ground.
Yeah, you showed us that at the end of a recording one day. But I think at that time you were thinking that they were going to be candle holders.
Oh, no. No.
Or was it always vases?
Oh, it was a vase. Wait, is it vases or vases?
Oh, don't get into
I
that.
don't even know.
Potato. God. Yeah, like there's definitely some, trying to figure out what I could fit on a sheet of steel as well. So there's a little bit of loose massing.
And on the back of your truck.
That was just luck.
I don't know how you fitted them all on there.
That one was not planned at all. I just got lucky.
That's maybe do a bit of planning next time.
Do your best and jib the rest.
Silicon the rest.
Yeah, like, because it was straight off the back of Mayfair, which I made a hydroformed table and 2 stools that had a rock on it, which I was lucky enough to have a awesome couple buy that. So that meant I had one less thing that I was planning to have in my show at the previous time. So then I had like a month of full send in the workshop, really. It was pretty hectic.
Nearly had a heart attack.
Didn't take a day off.
You almost died afterwards. Let's not dwell too much on that, but worth probably noting.
We'll get to that.
This man works hard.
So, hydroforming, for anyone out there who doesn't know, is basically he welds all these objects in a shape together, and then it also welds a tap connection, then uses a water blaster to pump it full of water so the steel shape expands outwards in kind of an organic random form, and then basically cuts the tap off, welds it and cleans it all up, and that's the object. Does that sound about right, Gerard?
Pretty much bang on. So,
and I have to say, I think like there was a couple of my favorite objects. Obviously the coffee table was like a easy win, but I think my personal favorite object was the rocking chair, where it's like basically like this big hydroformed cube So it was kind of steel cube with some kind of roundness, and that natural roundness from the hydroforming created like a natural rock, and then just cut out the seat area and filled it full of cushions. Looked so cool and was actually crazy comfortable, and the rocking worked so well.
That's sick.
Definitely the most comfortable chair I've made, which was the intention. That was a win. That was one of the ones that was designed beforehand. That was, in my mind, it's been part of Mum's house project. So in my mind, there'll be that one and then like a sofa version of it.
Has she got dibs on that?
Well, hopefully it sells. Yeah, she might get V2. But
wait, was the sofa going to be like a 3 times that?
Yeah, just the same thing.
Is it rocking as well? So you got like 3 people sitting on the couch rocking back and forth?
Yeah,
that's cool.
That'd be kind of fun, eh? All very annoying.
Yeah, probably the latter.
Imagine 2 young siblings, like worse than sitting beside each other in a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scale I found was really fun to hydroform because it's quite a big shape.
A lot of water.
When I made that...
Maybe 1 cubic meter of water?
Yeah, essentially. But when I made that, like the whole rockingness became more feasible as a concept in itself. It's kind of a strong enough movement, an idea to kind of tie an exhibition together, I thought. So pretty much, well, all of the objects are rocking objects, and the tippier ones all have concrete in the base, or the smaller ones that, like a flower, may overbalance it. Those have concrete at the bottom as well.
Did you cast the concrete in, then kind of like weld the form up around it, then hydroform it?
Pour some concrete in the bottom.
Or just pour concrete in the bottom at the end?
Yeah, so I had to drill a hole to weld in the hydroform spout. The vase spout. Because they're still functioning vases, but just with a little bit of welded tube in there.
Sure.
So we just rammed brick mortar in there.
Nice.
The thing I liked about the ballooning effect of the hydroform is there was somewhat of like a negative detail around the bottom. So like that rocking aspect also created like a real nice kind of negative detail where it's
kind of
like
makes it like a
shadowed a shadowed line around the bottom that makes it seem like it's floating. That's was cool. Really cool.
Yeah, I like that. When you're making them, Gerard, do they ever just explode?
Definitely, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, the shape might have corners that don't want to hydroform very well. Like a tight inside curve will ultimately pop pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Buttons tend to pop pretty quickly. Previously, I've pretty much always done buttons, so this was like a liberation of buttoning, which kind of allowed me to pump it up fuller and get like a rounder, softer, more cushiony sort of shape.
When you say buttons, what do you mean by that?
Like cushion buttons.
Yeah, previously I went
to get like the soft cushions. Effect.
So I'd weld a rod through the middle, and then you get the puffing around the button point.
Right.
But without that, you just get a very full, rounded object. Because ultimately, people use hydroforming to make spheres. So if you weld up a very basic circle net, if you turned all the triangles down in your computer model, so like 2 circle caps and some cones, then you could pump that out into a perfect sphere if you pump it hard enough.
Right, crazy.
So that's how.
What's PSI you putting into that beast?
I actually have no idea. Put a pressure reader on my first ever hydroform, and I've never put one on since.
What was your first one? Can you remember that?
It leaked like a sieve, so it's like 4 bar or something.
And are you allowed to talk about some of your more ambitious future projects? Yeah,
the scale of a gallery is really exciting, but at the same time, it kind of fuels this need, which initially was the whole point of the workshop in my mind. Initially, was building research or a place you'd learn, but ultimately you'd want to tie it back into architecture. So I think I've pushed the hydroforming quite far now in the art sculpture realm, and it would be pretty nice to push it into the architecture realm. And I think it's just very feasible to. I need to do maybe a small like shed for like a desk as a prototype for some other bigger potential projects we have coming up, we were looking to hydroform some more 30 square metre sort of size buildings.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah, that's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water.
So we're still at like the feasibility side, of, I guess, of this, because it's, I don't know, I don't know of any hydroform buildings.
That's like 90 cubic meters of water.
Litres, is that?
A lot. You may as well, like, you just have this beautiful hydroformed building and then an Olympic swimming pool beside it, and you just take the water from one into the other.
Well, I've been talking to a mate who has a farm.
You'd want to do it midwinter, surely, so there's no drought.
Yeah.
Your neighbours might not like you.
Yeah, as long as you do it somewhere where you're not paying for water. Ideally, somewhere where, I don't know, let's say it's 70,000 litres or something. You want somewhere where, if and when a weld explodes,
it doesn't compromise anything.
Where all that water goes.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have some pretty, I don't know, some tight health and safety measures in place. So nobody's...
You're not going to want to like flood some houses out or something.
Yeah, you probably
not really one to do in situ.
Nah, you don't maybe for a rural property. Rural property would be a mean one to prototype.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't want to be near it either while it's got
filling up. Boom.
So then there's, I don't know, lots of little things to think about. But it's kind of where my mind goes immediately, is jumping to those little problems.
It's kind of cool, dude, that you're looking at a way to transfer this learning and this knowledge. Because one thing I thought about through all of this is you've done so much of it, and quite intensively as well. You haven't grown tired of this line of inquiry yet.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I reckon it's awesome. It's kind of cool to hear that you haven't grown tired of it, but more like quite the contrary. It's sort of growing. Yeah. It's growing your ambition, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, I'm somebody who jumps.
Next year we're doing office blocks.
Hydroformed planet.
I
want to make
100
biggest
billion
cube in the world.
liters.
And it's just what the Death Star was.
The Death Star. The ultimate hydroforming goal. The Death Star.
Well, there's another idea of explosive forming, which could be...
Chuck a stick of dynamite inside.
TNT in there?
Yeah. My little brother's an armourer, so I wonder... Somewhere... There's probably not... Maybe mining people would have more explosives people, which you could probably get involved. So there.
Dried ice and water?
There's a possibility there.
Have
a play with the process a little bit. But yeah, I think seeing in my mind, a very basic child drawing of a house, like a gable with a window, and then go but fat.
Yeah.
And then like you puncture through these like real crisp door and window. I think could be, and then it's in like polished stainless or something. It's kind of too an appealing idea to pass up on.
Yeah, man.
Needs to be acted on. I think prototypes will have to be done. Well, I was thinking like the small...
it's full of water.
I was thinking the small scale one.
The rocking house.
Yeah, initially I want to build one just the size of the back of my ute, so I can fit it on the tray if need be, which would be 2.4 by 1.8 or something. You could just leave that with a curved underside and chuck it on a lawn or something. And then like you'd build a timber floor on the inside. But then I think spray foaming the inside walls, it becomes like a container fit out.
Yeah.
The hydroforming checks for leaks, so then you know it's 100% waterproof. And then spray foam it to stop condensation, and then I think it even maybe like a stucco plaster on the inside. Like you'd sculpt it back so it follows the walls.
Totally. Yeah, you wouldn't want to lose... You wouldn't want to lose, that natural form on the interior.
Yeah. It'd be such a shame, eh?
It seems like such a compromise, yeah.
Go inside and it's just
like a generic box. You're like,
I'll just put like a box in it. Would be quite funny. I know someone with a farm if you need some water. and space.
Back to the exhibition, because I mean, the architecture side of thing we could talk about all day, but the exhibition side of thing, I mean, particularly for I guess myself and probably you too, being like pretty foreign to us, like how did you go about deciding what to do? Like obviously you've talked about this idea of it like being a walk through a garden, and the idea of like the growth and the come down type thing, but like did you just play around and kind of like what landed? And then from that, how do you go about even curating the show?
I think there's a real interesting story there, because like I had a month and a table that I was loosely planning on having in that was no longer going to be in. So it was like the race of getting as many hydroformed objects was kind of started. So I had my friend Sarah Bookman come down, and she helped me for a solid week of we were just chopping shapes and hydroforming them. It was very...
Just playing.
Yeah, it was really off the cuff. It was like,
nice.
Except like there was a couple things like wanted to make like a little reference to like the old chimney on dock huts, so like that big wedge, tapering wedge sort of thing. It's like a motif that I've been playing with a little bit. That was like the first one, and then we started making shapes, and then I made like a little archway one, and it just seemed very cute. So then that led to the double arch bench. But
the aqueduct one is sick. I really like that.
I loved that one. It worked out really well. Hope somebody takes that home. Another table that I have, which is another rock table, which I was initially building for the art fair, but then I realised I had way less space than I thought I had. And this one was like full-size dining table, which is kind of like a lattice. It was like two bits of steel, 2 bits of steel, 4 bits of steel, 4 bits of steel. So it's like a reference to Kingo Kuma's Bridge Museum, which is like a central pole and then like layering up of timber that goes up and holds a building. Real beautiful building. It's like this table has like, and it's all stainless, so it's like a whole different language to like the cushion stuff. So then I was in my mind planning like a couple of those sort of layering up ideas. And ultimately I ran out of time. And I built the table, but it was slightly wobbly in the corners. Everything sits on a 38mm solid stainless bar, which is like, you pick up the bar and you're like, there's no way I'm bending this. And then as soon as you build a table, and then you like press on the end of the table, you can kind of you can see the bar like wiggling a little bit.
Damn.
It's amazing how much like a little lever arm will do to...
Yeah. How heavy is that table?
Pretty heavy. The top's 2.2 by 9 or 950 3mm. So there's a lot of steel there.
Yeah.
And then you got the layering up of lots of steel fins as well. It looks beautiful, and it's on like the base is a bit of white marble cut off of one of Joe Sheehan's Fed Street sculptures. So there's like a really nice story to the table. And then I had 6 stools that I was planning as well, which were like circle walnut drums. So like just perfect circle tubes. Which I have all the material for now. In a month to build, so pretty much everything in that show, and then that table and chairs. And then I was in my mind, I needed like more steel fin things to offset to read within that landscape of hydroformed objects to place these other things. I think, running out of time essentially was the best thing for me, because left to my own devices, I just make too many things. And I think the show is good because it is restrained, and that it's like one object, 2 materials, red and stainless. And then it's just like the landscape and the flowers kind of get to speak to each other.
Yeah, and I can see it being, because it's quite, I mean, it's a beautifully cultivated space, but it's not it's not an enormous space, right? So you could see it filling up pretty quickly and almost being overwhelming.
Yeah, it's 16 meters by like 4.8. So that was intimidating. It's like there's a lot of space there, and
I guess that empties big, like really big.
Yeah. But I didn't really factor in that the first 5 meters doesn't really have lighting. So my calculations were incorrect in the first place.
Yeah. Did you play around a lot with arrangements in plan before you got there?
No, I had a sketch, which was like just imagining this sort of scattering of objects, but that didn't have the point and the tapering down. That was just like full scattering. The scattering kind of happened with Francis when we were just arranging it, the gallery curator. Yeah, and that happened quite quickly. We just arranged it, and it was like, oh yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. Let's just leave it like that. That was relatively stress-free.
Did Francis have quite a bit of input into the curation? Was it a bit of a collab between you guys, or was it more driven by them? Or
loosely, but it was, I guess, mainly it was like, oh, Gerard, where do you want to put your things? And yeah, I guess he'd stop
on
me
the
doing
floor.
He'd stop me doing anything stupid.
Yeah, that's quite nice to have that freedom. I've always wondered how that works with solo shows, how much the gallery curator dictates versus how much the artist gets to dictate. Like, obviously, you as the artist have a vision, but curators are curators for a reason.
Yeah,
it's the equivalent of. I've always found this funny when I'm on a shoot with Simon Devitt, and I'll be like, I think this will be a nice shot, and he'll be like, he'll hear me, he'll be like, okay, that shot never comes through the proofs. You think but the experts also know.
Yeah, I guess we're also blessed then with elder Sam Hartnett taking some nice photos of the
they're beautiful.
The gallery, which it's pretty cool to have those photos. Yeah, all around pretty stoked. I think whilst I built it all in a month, it was probably best that I only had a month, because I would have been prone to overcomplicating, and then Jade and Francis would have to step in more and be like, no, Gerard, that doesn't work with that. Because I don't know, I get a little bit excited. I'm like, you get on this little rampage in the workshop where, I don't know, you just have so many ideas, and you're like, make, must make more. Oh, this idea is awesome. This idea is awesome. I was thinking about making hooks and pictures. I used to, when I'd sell an object to somebody, give them a little bit of steel with a real crude plasma cut drawing. So a little sketch, or just something absurd. Yeah. So just a real gross scribble, but in steel. So then I was like, cool. Man, I should do some of those. But I think all of these things would be cool exhibitions by themselves, a bunch of steel drawings.
Yeah. So that begs the question, do you have another show planned?
Not currently, but
take some time off.
There's many in my mind. Yeah, I guess that then leads us to the probably overdoing it for a month, and then kind of having a weird thing on the side of the road, way to Wanganui for the night. But yeah, I think I may have just overdone it on
a weird spasm
working front.
Word of warning to listeners. Overworking is a real thing. Exhaustion will fuck your shit up, basically.
Yeah.
What were we supposed to do? We were supposed to record. And I was like, yo, are we recording tonight? And Ben's like, I don't think so. Pretty sure Gerard's in the hospital. And I was like, what?
Yeah. It's hard to know where the limit is sometimes. Yeah, that took me out for a week. And then some weird dizzy spells if you work too hard. And then I got a cold for a week. So I've been out for a couple.
Yeah.
Starting to get back on the tools.
Nice.
Rearing to go.
Rearing
to whip into this first, the small scale shed, which I think will be a proof of concept for the bigger ones. And then I have ideas around the skin you want to be the structure, but then how do you engineer that formally? And then do we know any engineers that work actually in software? One I'm thinking of, SolidWorks, I think is incredibly close to real life geometry.
Don't know, eh? You need a gun engineer, someone who's super, well, probably young, but super design focused, but also understands the parameters.
Or just an absolute cowboy, someone who really doesn't understand the parameters, but is willing to put their name down to anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
somebody retiring.
Someone retiring.
Work's a treat.
Yeah. Gerard, it's interesting, you talked about that proof of concept thing. How much could you not just do that? Surely there's
you have to test it.
Well, there's exactly right. There's
get a brands appraised.
Well, I'm building a mock-up, so it will be tested.
Yeah. If exactly right. And like, I don't know, take it to brands or something and get them to chuck it on the.
Do they have a wiggle machine?
Yeah, it's not like it's not like it's going to fall down in an earthquake.
No.
It's going to be strong, but like at some point we have to formalize it and convince.
What about? Here's a question for you. What about lightning strikes? How do you deal with those? Just ground it.
Just earth it.
Earth it.
But you also
whatever you do not touch the outside of the house.
I guess
you need a big enough earth.
Yeah, it's just a jet stream bloody caravan ultimately, isn't it?
Or just put it on rubber.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It is basically like a jet stream.
Some rubber stilts, so like tires for a caravan, I guess. Just a bit of rubber separation.
Yeah.
The base isolators.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a rocking house with base isolators so it doesn't rock.
This comes back to our everything house episode. Surely everything inside the house also has to be hydroformed.
Yeah. Well, funny you ask. I've been thinking about like hydroform knives and forks was something I wanted to put in the show. I made a couple plates of hydroform some plates. Well, you just get like weird chubby handles, like just kind of comical. That is my other recent research. Is if you're going to weld a shed, then you kind of have to be certified. So I've been looking into welding certs.
Oh, right.
And I'm going to send some tests away to the testing people to see how dangerously far away from my welds being good enough for weld cert. So then that can inform as to whether I have to get somebody else to weld up a shed or not.
What are they testing for that? Like how strong your welds are and that sort of thing?
Yeah, they'll do an X-ray because it'll be stainless. So they'll do an X-ray and then a breakage test, I think.
Right.
And then it's you have to do it supervised. You essentially follow a recipe of what you do.
Interesting.
But it doesn't sound as terribly difficult as I anticipated, because I guess I've never had to weld anything structural before. I just weld chairs and vases.
Yeah.
Usually you don't have to get a building consent for a vase.
Yeah, well, how would you go about getting... I mean, I guess if it's under that... What's that, under 70 square metres now, you know, you can kind of skirt the realms of consent
not
there.
Really. It still needs to technically
meet the
be
building
compliant.
code. Yeah. So as meet the building code. But where in the building code does it say that you can't build a house completely out of steel? It just has... There's just durability and stability clauses, right?
I don't think that's an issue. I think the only issue is being a certified welder and having an engineer that's okay with it.
Give you a producer statement.
Yeah, worst comes to worst, you weld up a roll cage essentially inside of it.
Mm.
And like that's easy enough.
That's like you know how I talked about
rolling house.
You know, I talked about the Disney, not the Disney, the Guggenheim Bilbao, and how it's just basically like lattice work all behind it. It'd still be kind of cool. Kind of have you could create that like cavity void and fill that with foam when your lattice work structure.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame though, isn't it? Like
it would lose its purity.
The idea is
don't do that.
Skin
as
structure.
Call it a day.
Yeah.
No one wants to see an ugly. I don't want to see one of those things in a car, let alone a house.
You'd never see it. Like it would be spray foamed over.
Yeah.
So either way, you'd never see it.
Well, yeah.
That's our contingency plan anyway.
Nice. Is this just for lulz, or have you got like a client in mind, or is it purely just?
I've weirdly got a couple people interested. I think it's epic that people want to entertain this kind of thing.
Has that come through the exhibition, or has that just come through other channels, or?
Both, one of each.
Cool. Nice, man. That's awesome.
So you don't want to count your chickens.
Yeah. What I really love...
I'll make a little shed.
What I really love, and you sort of talked about it when you're thinking about what items to create, you were using architectural motif as a design driver for your art show, and now you're kind of using your art show as a design driver for your architecture. It's sort of like this nice cyclical thing. I really like that.
It's a nice seesaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just been writing some answers to some interview questions for a write-up on the show. And I've been kind of talking about that, how it like started in the workshop as doing that reference to the architecture, but then architecture references. Like my spiky table was like a reference to one of Ishigami's buildings on that university in Japan. And then, vice versa, you get the same influences going back and forth.
What architecture was the inspiration for the pool noodle couch?
That was doorstops. was like giraffe stoppers. I built this.
Was it not pool noodles?
No, it's made out of pool noodles.
Yeah.
Initially, I had that project in my mind for like 2 years, and I was planning on making it out of sewn, comical-looking giraffe stopper snakes with googly eyes and
the breathe stoppers where you put them to seal off the underside of the door.
Yeah, the old school. Yeah,
hilarious. Tie some snakes together.
In a world where design speaks louder than words, what story does your space tell? At Aotearoa Acoustics, they believe great design is more than aesthetics. Every product they create strikes a perfect balance between form, function, and sustainability, made to enhance how a space sounds, looks, and feels. From using recycled materials to pioneering carbon-negative wool, their commitment is to help you shape environments that inspire people and respect the planet. Explore the future of acoustics design at aotearoacoustics.co.nz.
How like Zaha modelled, they engineered one of her buildings purely on software because it was like too complex to engineer. I think like SolidWorks, if you 3D scanned the shell of like the hydroformed house, SolidWorks is like a pretty powerful tool for stress analysis.
Right.
Which is like dangerously close to real life.
How it actually performs.
Yeah. So I imagine like there's software now that is pretty comparable if you type in what gauge steel. So then you basically just try to find an engineer that works in SolidWorks.
Well, I know one. ChatGPT.
Gerard won't do it. Gerard won't do it. He won't do it.
If there's any
listeners out there, if there's any listeners out there that
aren't ChatGPT,
proficient, that aren't ChatGPT, that are proficient in SolidWorks,
ChatGPT's always listening.
Don't do it, man.
Yeah, I was talking about this the other day. I think like the little hydroformed house is like the first proper like delving into trying to create an architecture that AI probably wouldn't come up. That's a big positive for me about this line of inquiry. So if we can keep things down that road, unrobotable.
Yeah,
I quite like that idea. Keep it away. Keep it random enough that it can't be learnt. Basically, is that it?
Yeah, that's what I think. And which like goes back to like the design process conversation and like old Anne Holtrop basically tricking himself into designing things using outside influences. What does he do? He made a building out of like a scribble. You just pick out lines out of a scribble. Or like ink droplet drawings, and then you're like, that's my floor plan. It's very like strange, arbitrary sounding things, but fun processes too.
Well, I kind of like that idea of falling into a solution. It's sort of like you said when you started doing the stuff for the exhibition, you were just welding up random shapes and blowing them up and seeing kind of where they led to.
Yeah, I guess our parameters were like, we want a certain amount of this sort of size, and then like
set yourself some broad guidelines or whatever and just see what lands in the middle. I found that quite interesting. I'm preparing that talk for Piulo on Friday.
Is it a live talk?
It is live, yeah. I was peeking it around how you kind of like develop yourself as a designer a little bit. And a lot of it, and the reason why I asked Gerard how long are you going to take this line of design inquiry, because a thing that I'm planning to talk about, and that is how we've taken that modular line of design inquiry not to the end of its capability, but to the end of where I feel I can be not necessarily bothered with it anymore, but like I've explored it enough to satisfy that itch. Now I want to try something else. So it's interesting to hear you say that you're still intrigued by the hydroforming thing. I like that idea of you falling into a new line of idea or design inquiry, like you talked about just before.
Yeah, like it is interesting how long it's kept me entertained, because I do sometimes have a tendency to jump from idea to idea, but I'm definitely not like a Sean Godsell where I'm iterating something in a certain aspect, certain lane. It looks like it.
You are iterating though.
Like, no, I definitely am.
All of it's iteration.
But I think I have several lanes of iteration. There's lots of ideas all going at the same time.
This one's just sort of the front runner at the moment.
Yeah, it's one of the spinning plates.
I find it interesting preparing these sort of talks because it makes you review your work critically. and your journey critically as well. I think you very rarely have the opportunity or afford yourself the opportunity to sit back and go, where have I come from? How did I get here? What process did I use? Where are we going? And it's quite nice being forced to do that in a way, and then being like, you kind of start to discover a little bit more about yourself as a designer, and I think your practice as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. It's the same as like teaching. Like sometimes you learn more about what you're trying to do through teaching others.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. I think that's where that draw to be involved with the uni kind of comes into it as well. Like you said, Gerard, like you can glean really good ideas from the people that you're supposed to be giving ideas to, in a way,
whose minds you're trying to free.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason that you probably can get pretty good ideas from them is their minds are free. Ours are all clouded, and
you'd be intrigued. Like sometimes it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Sometimes people's ideas are very locked into the conception of a house. I was brought up in a suburb of GJ Gardner's, so when I think of a house, it
looks like that.
This is what house looks like. So when you're trying to convince people to kind of expand your thoughts and really open ideas up, sometimes it's more of a struggle to push people to actually free themselves.
Mm.
Yeah. I was intrigued by that when I was teaching. I have another strange pitch I emailed off to somebody the other day. I was thinking of a modular chapel, so like an outdoor wedding venue. You could have like a shipping container with some panels which you could just erect into an open A-frame. Just like this real crisp white steel tube frame with some like sort of feather-like sheets of steel clad on the sides. But then you just have modules, so 1,200 wide based on a sheet of steel. You just have like a bank of, 6 or 7 of them. Bam!
So you can make it bigger or smaller depending on how big your wedding is.
Yeah. Or if you've got an outdoor wedding and then it rains, you're like, oh no, what do I do? And you're like, well, bam, pop up this expanding chapel.
Who did you send that to, may I ask?
I've got a friend who's a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
Just cold called out the blue. Hey, I've got an idea.
No,
it's not a bad tactic.
That's exactly what I did. I emailed them.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, they double as a marquee company, the first people. I'll likely email more because for me, I just want another avenue of creativity.
Yeah.
And this other idea that I have floating around in my head. But I think business-wise, it semi has legs. It's like
I like the boldness of that as well.
Chapel marquee.
Because I think you've said it before, Gerard, and it's another thing that I've come to think of a lot is, waiting for the right client to explore an idea. It's just never going to happen. So you kind of need to push that stuff onto people instead of waiting for someone to come and get it. You've given it out there, and that way you almost guarantee the right fit in terms of a client, rather than having somebody come to you and then be like, "Oh, I've got this crazy idea. What do you reckon?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't really know."
Yeah, I'll probably.
True.
There's plenty other.
But if you don't ask, you don't know.
Wedding companies that I can pitch it to.
Yeah.
Well, I also did it without any pictures, so it was like.
Yeah, like, so you just tried to describe it.
Yeah, can you communicate this with words? So that'll be the real. Imagine if that goes ahead and I didn't even give them a picture. Like, do you then create your own hire company for rentable church chapels, rentable wedding venues?
You might have to test it yourself first, mate.
Well, that's generally the way I do things, isn't it?
Yeah. If you can't find the right client, be the right client.
Yeah. Yeah, you could build one module and then you just. I've done that before. You build one thing and then you move it in the photograph so then it looks bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done. Easy.
Don't even have to build. Only have to build one module.
Until somebody's like, "Hey, I've got this big wedding coming up. I need I need 16 of your modules."
Get them to put down a deposit and you just build 16 or 15 more.
Yeah, we've all heard how much Gerard can get done in a month.
Yeah, just have a big weekend,
Yeah.
Sounds like it was a month on, 2 weeks off, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
That's just oil rig work, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the mines.
Yeah. You probably could be coming home from work looking like you've been in the mines that much grinding.
It does, man. There was a couple of days where I started making that chair Well, that was the one thing I had started making before, and it had rusted over. So I had to wire brush that, and it took me like a day of wire brushing. And wire brushing inside of a cube.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, shit was everywhere.
Gross.
Nowhere was safe. So that was a very dirty shower.
The painted ones, are they mild steel, not stainless?
Yeah, they're all electro-galv, with the exception of that chair, which for some silly reason I didn't buy electro-galv. Everything seems to rust in my workshop, so try to buy electro-galv or stainless where possible. Yeah. I guess the red oxide as well is like a kind of a New Zealand reference. I think it's classic New Zealand colour.
Yeah.
Lots of sheds and lots of primers back in the day were probably red oxide.
Yeah, any old building, you pull it apart, it'll have red oxide steel in it.
Yeah, somewhere or other there's some red oxide.
Yeah.
So I think it's a
That's cool.
story with a bit of colour. And I painted the edges ever so slightly a different colour just to kind of accentuate that shape. But that came about because after I hydroform it, I kind of dry off the water, and then, because there's a ground back edge where you grind the electro-galv off. Then you're left with like a bit of raw steel, which will flash rust real fast if it's wet. So then I just put some zinc spray paint primer on there. And then it kind of created like a grey surface with a slightly darker grey in the corners. And them just hanging out in the workshop with me, I was kind of became quite into that accentuated edge. Kind of seemed to emphasise the pillowiness like a little bit.
Cool. Another happy accident.
Yeah. So the whole thing was lots of happy accidents. Moving as you go, which it was really fun to put together.
What's the name of the show?
Inflation.
A happy accident.
Yeah, happy.
Inflation. Nice.
Yeah.
Season Gallery.
Yeah. Season Gallery. If you go, make sure you give things a little prod.
See it wobble.
See it wobble.
Are you allowed to sit in the chair?
Yeah, as long as you haven't got like sharp studs on your pants or a dirty bum.
Nice.
It's pretty comfy, so have a seat.
Do you know if you sold many pieces?
Yeah, we've sold 9 things so far.
Cool.
So sold a good chunk.
Nice, man. Well done.
People like things enough to like want to take them home and live with. One funny one was a guy on opening night kicked one of the cushions accidentally just because it was packed in there. And then everything's on the ground, so you're kind of asking for it.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh no, I kicked it." And I think in the end he argued that it was fate. It was like, no, it wants me. He's like, "Can I drill a hole in the back of it and mount it on the wall?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, yeah." It's like just like a roughly 400 by 400 stainless cushion, which I think would be a beautiful wall hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah. I would have put things on the walls, but yeah, wanted to really be a bit relentless on the floor surface.
Nice that he checked with you, that it wasn't going to like compromise your vision or anything.
Yeah, it's very nice. Over a couple of beers.
Yeah.
It was well of a night. That was very fun.
There was a lot of people there.
Very stoked that lots of people came. So if you're listening to this and you came, big thanks.